We're trying to expand globally. Long curly hair and a beard, but he ain't Toby Keith. You might have thought it's beef, but we gon' handle that. Stealing jerseys off of the wall like fuck Vanderjack. Okay, he ran with that, and now he's on the loose. Put a little bit of poison in his Jamba Juice. Go ahead and drink on that, just take another sip. Need an appraisal? Shout out to Ron Huff and Dick. The kids loving this. I know you heard it, son. The purpose is perfect. Every person we learn something from. Go ahead and come along. We have a little fun. A few questions. How about 31?
Ooh, hoo, hoo, hoo. 31 time, and it's a special one today. This is an episode I've been waiting to do for a long time. It's my buddy Brad Garrett. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to him. He's amazing, and I'll tell you all about him in a minute. But quick shout out to everybody stuck inside. I hope everybody's staying safe, staying healthy. I appreciate everybody that bought books. I got some stickers now if you want to buy some stickers. I appreciate everybody tuning into my Facebook Lives and hanging out. I just miss interacting with my friends and talking to you guys, so it's been a lot of fun to get to do that. So I just want to hope everybody's doing good, and shout out to the Patreons. Thank you guys all so much for the Patreon, for joining the Patreon. I hope it's worth it to you guys. We're putting out a ton, we're putting out more content than anybody, so I hope you feel like you're getting your $7 or $10 or $20 or $100, whatever you guys are donating. I appreciate it, and I'm just excited for today. I'm excited to tell you about Brad. I reached out to him, said, hey, we do the podcast, and he said, I can do it like next Thursday. And then he sent me a text before. He was like, how long is it going to be? And I said, I usually go about 45 to an hour. And he was like, let's just shoot for like 45. You know, he said nobody's that entertaining for an hour. And he could have easily been. So I only have 45 minutes with him just because that's what he said. And I think in his defense, he just probably thought this was some bullshit ass podcast where I'd be like, hey, what's it like to be Brad Garrett? But once we started going, I think he had a good time, and I think he was a little surprised that these weren't just the usual questions that he probably gets as a celebrity. So I think I loved it. It was cool. He's just the most generous, nicest guy there is. And so here's how our history works, because it's still surreal to me that he's my friend. Like I actually consider him a friend. And it's been probably 4 or 5 years, and he's been so good to me, and he's become a major part of my life. Like so here's how it starts. So he opened a club at the Tropicana, and I wasn't getting booked at the Tropicana. I would just go there and hang out. And I remember like the first time I had an interaction with him, I was just hanging out at the club, and it was maybe the second or third time I'd seen him. He's like, what are you doing? You're just always here hanging out. And I was like, yeah. And he's just so sweet and generous with his time and nice, and he was so cool to me. And so eventually I got booked. I had moved to LA, and then I finally got booked. And I don't even know how I got booked, honestly, in hindsight. But I remember I got booked, and I was driving from LA back to the MGM, because the club had moved over to the MGM. And on my drive over, I got a text from a number I didn't know, and I opened it up, and it's from Brad Garrett. And I was like, holy shit. And he's like, hey, it's just Brad Garrett. I just want to, welcome you to my club. If you need anything, just let me know. We're excited to have you. And I was like, this is crazy, which is a cool thing, because everybody's always trying to get into his club, and I know it's coming. I never want to spoil it for people, but they're always like, yeah, I got in Brad Garrett's club. And I don't want to tell him, but that Monday, whenever you work his club, he'll send you a text. And it just never gets old. It's like, holy shit, Brad's texting me. So the first like 4 or 5 times, that was a big deal. I mean, it's still a big deal, but it was like a really big deal to me, because he was by far the most famous person that actually like contacted me. So I did the shows, and I got to do his club, but I never got to do it with him. And then I think maybe the 3rd or 4th time I did the club, he was working that week. So I think Monday, Tuesday we did the shows, and I had no money. I came over from LA again, and at the time they they weren't giving out. They couldn't give me a hotel for the weekend, so I was staying at my buddy Justin's and my best friend Justin, who lived in Vegas. So I had to take the bus to the comedy club, and I remember being on the bus and checking Twitter, and then the Brad Garrett's Comedy Club Twitter was like, we have a special guest at the show tonight. I was like, oh, I wonder who it'll be. So I get to the club, and Brad will always come in right before the show starts. And so he walks in. I'm sitting on the couch in the green room, and he just walks by me. As he walks in, heading towards the stage, he just looks at me. He goes, hey, Brandt, Jason Alexander's going to come. I'm going to put him up, and then I'm going to put you up. Is that okay? And I was like, holy shit. And if you don't know who Jason Alexander is, he's George Costanza from Seinfeld. So I'm like, wow, I got to follow George Costanza. And I got a little nervous. I was like, this is going to be weird. So Jason Alexander comes in the green room, and he's super sweet and nice and introduces himself. And he had just got like his fake hair on top. So it was crazy because I was trying not to stare at it because I'm used to him being bald on Seinfeld. So he comes in, and then so then Brad's just out. Brad always crushes, so he's up crushing. The crowd's going crazy. After about 15 minutes, and then Jason Alexander comes through the back door, and I think Brad must have heard him come through the door, and he was standing behind the curtain. So Brad says to the crowd, Brad's like, yeah, I used to be on the biggest TV show, in the world. And right as he says that, Jason Alexander bursts through the curtain, and he's like, you used to be on the biggest show in the world? I think I used to be on the biggest show in the world. Crowd goes crazy. They banter back and forth. They're just crushing. After about 10 minutes of them just telling stories about Seinfeld and everybody loves Raymond and talking to the crowd, Brad just out of nowhere goes, all right, you want to bring up the next comic? And the crowd's like, yeah. And then they announce me, and I walk out, and the crowd's just like, oh my God. And now this is like before Cosby got in trouble. So my opening line was like, who the fuck do you think was going to come out? Bill Cosby or something? And they all laughed. But then I just ate it for like 10 minutes. I think I was doing a 10-minute set. So I just ate it. My material wasn't bad. They just were like, it's just like seeing Babe Ruth, seeing the Yankees play, and then watching a kid throw a baseball with his dad in the front yard or something. So I ate it, and I came back in the green room, and then Brad brought up the next comic. So we're just hanging out in the green room, and Brad and Jason are in there, and they brought in a couple big wigs from the casino. So I'm just sitting to the side trying to stay out of the way, and I'll never forget, Brad just comes over, and he shakes my hand, and there's a $100 bill in it. He's like, hey, man, good job, kid. You did good. Go get yourself a good dinner. And I just opened up the palm of my hand, see a $100 bill. I'm like, oh, shit. And I was like, thank you. And what he didn't know is that was like 10 dinners, right? So that was my first real experience. And he would tell the craziest stories. And I wish I could have got him to tell them on the podcast, but we ran out of time. But he would tell these crazy stories about opening up for Sinatra. And there's a bunch of them, and I don't want to tell other people's stories, but the one I'll tell you, as a comic, the craziest one that he told me was that Sinatra obviously just do whatever he wanted. So so Frank Sinatra's manager would say, just go out and perform. So Brad would go out and open up, and then when Sinatra was ready, he would just come pull on the cord that was like running under the curtain. So Brad said he would just go out there, and he's like, I didn't know if I'd have to do 5 or do like 30. But all I knew is when I heard when I felt a tug on the cord, I had to get off immediately. And like for a comedian, that's just crazy. You always have an idea what you're doing, and just the uncertainty of that. And, being around Sinatra and those of you that know about Sinatra, the people that surround Sinatra, he told me just some crazy stories that I think are probably in his book, and he'll tell one day. I'm not going to tell his stories, but so I always loved just talking to him, and he's just so sweet and generous with his time. So we became friends over time, and then so I was his godson runs the club, is one of the managers at the club, and then his sound guy is a guy named Dre who I really like, and we became good friends. So I would always tell him my stories, my crazy Vegas stories, and they would always tell Brad, hey man, you need to tell these stories to Brad. Brad would love them, but Brad's just so busy. Even anytime we're in the green room and I'd start to tell a story, someone would come in and say, hey, someone so-and-so's here. Can I get a quick picture? Someone's here to talk to you from the head of the MGM or whatever. So I never got to tell him these stories. So one weekend I get to go back, and Brad's there, and I'm working with Sarah Tiana, who's a very funny comedian. And at the time I had this like little crush on her, and I had no money again, which will be a theme of this this whole podcast, but I had no money. So I had rode the Asian bus over. There's a bus you take from downtown LA and just the shitty hood, and it's just like all Asian people, and you get on it and you can ride it to Vegas for $20. It takes like 5 hours, but they show movies, but they're all in Asian, and they give you Asian food, and it's not, I mean, it's a good deal for $20, but it's no treat, right? So on the last night of working with Brad and Sarah, and I think it was Carl LeBeau, Sarah was going to drive back to LA. So I was like, can I get a ride with you? And she's like, yeah, of course. Cause she's super sweet. And like I said, I kind of had a crush on her, but when you do Brad Garrett's room, he puts you up in this beautiful suite at the MGM. So part of me is like, I don't want to go back to my shitty apartment in LA. I'm just going to stay in the suite one last night. So Sarah finishes her set and just leaves, starts driving to LA. So I'm hanging out in the green room waiting for the show to end. Brad comes off stage. And me and Dre and his godson Ed are in there, the manager, and he just says to us, "Hey man, you want to go out? You want to get a drink?" And Brad never says that because he has a fiance at the time, was a girlfriend, and he just is a busy dude, or he'd go play poker. And we were like, "Yeah, of course," which is so crazy because everything in the world I should have went home with Sarah, that drove home with Sarah, but for some reason I just like something told me to stay. So Brad's like, yeah, let's go out. So he's like, let's go. So we walk through the casino, which is crazy to walk by him because he's like 6'7", so people will see him. But then I was behind him, so they'd be like, oh shit, that was Brad Garrett, but we were past him. So we go to, there's a center bar, this whiskey bar in the center of MGM, and we sit down at this table, and I sit on one side, Brad sits across from me, Dre's to my left, Ed's to Brad's right. The four of us are just sitting at a table in the middle of this whiskey bar in the casino, and we sit down, and the waitress comes over, and Brad doesn't drink, so he's like, what do you guys want? I order a Coors Light. Ed and Dre, I think they ordered Coors Lights too, and then Brad got like a fruity juice drink, and we sit down, and he's like, all right, I've heard about these stories, let's hear them. And I was like, okay. So I just start telling my stories about my father and my life, and Brad's just fucking listening to every word. And it's surreal because I've told those stories before, but I'm like, there's moments in the night I remember I'm just looking up and Brad's just like listening to every word that I'm saying. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I tell him stories for like an hour, and he's like, tell me more. Then at about the hour part, the waitress comes over in to check on us. And Brad's like, you guys ever have a shot of Louis the 13th? And we're like, no. So he said to the waitress, hey, how much are shots of Louis the 13th? And she's like, $317 a shot. And Brad's like, $317 a shot? She's like, yeah, sorry, Brad, I can't do anything. He's like, all right, give me 3 of them. So he orders us these shots, the best shots you can have, $300 shots. Brings them back over. She sets them down, brings us more beers. He's like, all right, tell me more. And I'm like, this is so crazy. And in that moment, and I took the shot of Louis, it was shitty. I mean, I think it's like an acquired taste. And I almost spilt it. And I was like, God, I almost spilt like $170. So I tell him like another hour of stories. And I finish it up, and he's like, all right, man. He goes, that was incredible. He's like, what you have is a movie. Now, I can't promise you anything. I don't know. I can't say I'm going to do anything, but what you have is a movie. What I want you to do is write 30 pages of stories. Write these stories down. Write me 30 pages of stories and bring them to me. And I was like, okay. And he says goodbye to Ed and Dre, and then he says goodbye to me, he shakes my hand, gives me a hug. And there's $200 in it. And he was like, hey, man, nobody ever fucking takes the bus when you work for me. Get a plane ticket out of here tomorrow. So I don't know how he knew that. I think maybe when I went to the bathroom, Ed or Dre or somebody told him, and I was like, okay, thanks, Brad. But of course, I needed that $200 was huge. So I still got on the bus for $20 because that was like 15 more meals. So I ride the bus back to LA. When I get to LA, like that week, I get kicked out of where I'm living. So I move in with Jeff Dye, my best buddy Jeff Dye. But Jeff Dye's flying to Egypt to film. He was in a TV show. I can't even remember what it's called, with George Foreman and Terry Bradshaw and Better Late Than Never, William Shatner and Henry Winkler. So he's flying to Egypt or overseas for a month to film. So I'm like, this is my chance. I'm going to just not drink for a month. I'm just going to work every day on these stories, stay in Jeff's house, and I had a Fitbit that Jeff bought me, and I would walk around and get my Fitbit steps and spend the rest of the day trying to write these stories. So for like 30 days, I work hard on these stories. I get them all done. 30 pages of my best stories. And I finish at like 10:15 at night, right? And I'm like, fuck, I still need to get my steps. So I leave Jeff's house, and I start walking through the park next to Jeff's house. And out of nowhere, I get a text from my best friend, Justin. And he's like, yo, your boy Brad Garrett's in here at my restaurant. So he worked at Sushi Samba in the Venetian, which is a place Brad loved to go. And I was like, oh, for real? I was like, who's with him? And he's like, it's just him and his girl. And I was like, what's his tab at right now? Where's he at? He's like, he's at like 128. I was like, okay, try to don't let him order anything else. Just leave it at that, and then let me pay the tab. Because I knew I had these 30 pages done, and I knew Brad was like trying to help me. And this was like my one chance to do something nice for Brad. So I said, let me pay for this tab, but try not to let him order anything else. So I remember just walking, and then Justin calls me. He goes, okay, he's done. He wants his ticket. 128's where it's at. And I was like, okay, here, I'll send you my credit card. So I send him my credit card, and then he takes the check out to Brad. And he says, here, Mr. Garrett, Mr. Tobler, Mr. Tobler took care of your dinner as a thank you for everything you've done for him. And Justin said, Brad just goes, why the fuck would he do that? He doesn't have any money. So then, like 10 minutes, so then he was like, and then he gave Justin a big tip, and he just said, well, thank you so much, and tell Brandt. So then I get a text from Brad, 11:46 at night. I still have it. And it just says, what the fuck? What are you, Steve Wynn? Brandt, can't believe you. So unnecessary. Thank God Izzy has a tapeworm. That's his girlfriend. Thanks so much. You'll have to work a week at the club to cover this. Really very kind. Thanks, my brother. So, which is the coolest thing. I like I said, that was 25% of what I had in life in my bank account, but I knew I wasn't going to have that many chances to show Brad how thankful I was for everything that he's done for me. And you just, these rich and famous people, they never, I've been around them. You never get to pick up a tab. This is my one chance. So it was so cool. I got to do that. Right. So then like a week later, I drive to Vegas. I give him the 30 pages and he reads them over, and we email back and forth, but he's just busy. He's a star. So he doesn't have time, and he's so generous with his time. So I don't know who else he was trying to help. So he went back and forth, and he's like, it's good. I gave to some people. And then I met up with him in Vegas, and he was like, okay, what you have is great. You need to write a book or write a movie script. And I was like, okay. And I didn't know how to write a script. I didn't know how to write a movie script. So I was like, fuck it. I'll just write a book. Never imagining how hard it is to write a book. So then I just took those 30 pages, because those were the best stories I had. So it was kind of already in a book, like the path was set for the book. So then I just for 2 years worked on that book, and I could have got it done faster. I put it off, and then I finished the book, and those of you that read the book, if you go to the credits, I think Keith, my boss in Vegas, who really changed my whole entire life. I would have never even got to meet Brad Garrett, or anything would have happened if it wasn't for him, who will always be the most important person to ever come into my life. But the second person I think is Brad, because without Brad, this book never happens, which is crazy in this moment right now, because without this book, I'd be fucked right now. I mean, I'm hoping to perform in 6 weeks, and I have sold so many. I've probably sold 100 books, maybe like 120 during this quarantine, which has allowed me to have money coming in. And it's the thing I'm most proud of in my entire life, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, but when I got the book, they'll send you like a physical copy, my last copy, to go through to make it sure it's what I want before it goes to press. And I was in Phoenix at the time. I left LA. I was miserable. I was living in Phoenix. I didn't know what I was going to do, if I was going to move to Denver. I was so lost. And I got that book, and I went to a Chick-fil-A, and I remember just sitting there, and I ordered my Chick-fil-A, and I was holding this book, and I just start crying in Chick-fil-A, like, fucking, this is my book. I did it. And then I had a moment, where I was like, what if nobody buys my book? But then they did, and it's so cool. So without Brad, I never write that book, I'm a lazy piece of shit. Like I'm the one of the laziest people in the world. But when, someone famous that you just respect so much tells you to write a book, That's the only way I would write that book is because Brad told me and like it, you know, and it's hopefully it'll change my life. And for like the feasters, the Crab Feast fans listening, no one knows this, but Jay Larson, I signed over the rights to my book to Jay Larson to shop around Los Angeles. So I signed an 18-month contract with Jay Larson where he's trying to sell it as a movie or a TV right now, and then he'll be an executive producer. So it's crazy. So this is all because of Brad that I have this book. And if it gets made into a movie or TV show, which I will, it'll because of Brad and Jay Larson, which is so crazy that it all comes back to Crab Feast and Brad. So now so after all this, Brad, I consider him like a friend, and there's times that he would just text me out of the blue and check in on me, or if I did something good. I remember I was doing shows, and out of nowhere, I just looked down and it just says Brad Garrett, and I'm like, and then he said, I'll tell you what he said. I got his text right here. So he just said, I'll never forget. I'm just sitting there, and he just says, just out of nowhere, 11:12 at night, he just says, "No, you're out there killing it. Proud of you, BG." I mean, just out of nowhere. And I was just like, thank you, buddy. So anyway, so I love him. He's the best. And but you know me, I'm a fucking idiot. So fast forward, I moved to Denver. Everything's going good. You know, we whenever I do his room or whatever, we talk. So then, in true Brandt fashion, there's a comic from Denver. This guy named Steve Mudflap McGrew, who should have been like he was supposed to be like one of the, like Larry the Cable Guy took his spot. It was supposed to be Ron White, Jeff Foxworthy, Bill Engvall, and this Steve McGrew guy. He was a country radio DJ out here, but he's a super big Trump guy, and Brad's not a Trump guy. So, but Brad's just still fair and just great. So then Steve McGrew was just pumping all this bullshit Trump shit on Facebook and making fun of like the kids that got taken away from their family. So Brad said, "Hey man, I can't condone, like, you freedom of speech, you can say whatever you want, but I don't like that you're making fun of these kids that got taken away from their family. So you're not going to work my club. I know I have you booked for 2 gigs for 2 weeks. I'm going to pay you for both weeks, but I just don't, you're just not going to work my club." Which is unheard of. No booker does that. They'll cancel you in a fucking second, right? So Brad still pays him for those 2 gigs. So then this idiot he starts working at the club across the street, the Laugh Factory. And then he's in Vegas, and he posts this thing about last year I was at this club, and he posts a picture of Brad Garrett's, and he's like, "I got kicked out because I'm a liberal," and all, and he's talking shit about Brad and the club, right? So I see it. I come home, I'm drunk. It's like 12:30. I'm fucking wasted. I see him write this on Facebook. So I wrote to him, I'll read this to you word for word. I said, "That was last year when you were working the best club in Vegas, and now you're across the street at a shithole that pays you way less and you have no audience. Brad has been nothing but great to every comic that has ever worked for him, and unfortunately you tried to pretend you are the biggest Trump supporter once he got elected because your career was dead. And now you have a couple fans who are all too broke to buy tickets to your shitty show. Anybody that has worked for Brad knows he treats all of his comics better than any club in the country. You can play this cowboy card for 1 more year, but the Laugh Factory will see you can't sell any tickets during NFR and get some other has-been country radio DJ to try to sell tickets next year. Remember when you used to..." Hold on, I have to go to the next text. I said, "Remember when you used to work Comedy Works in Denver? When you can't even get booked at the best club in your hometown, you suck. You can't get booked anywhere in Denver. It's honestly sad. I used to respect you, but as I watch you try to use Brad's name and fame to get attention, I realize that you're a complete pile of shit. Keep doing the cruise ships and feel free to jump off the side of one of them at any time. Your victim Trump supporter crybaby shit is embarrassing to all of us real comics." So I blast him like that on Facebook, because the part I didn't say, he wasn't a Trump guy until his career started going shitty. And then he latched onto this Chad Pinther guy who was like a Trump guy. So he just became a Trump guy to try to save his career. He's just a piece of shit. And then I wish I had his original post, but he was shitting on, Brad, saying it was Brad's fault and just trying to play this victim that that even though he didn't write in there, Brad still paid him for his 2 weeks, and Brad couldn't be more fucking nice, right? So I defend Brad, which is great, you know. I write this, oh God, looking back at it, I wrote that at 2:51 a.m., right? At 3:10 a.m., I text Brad Garrett. I text Brad Garrett 2 screenshots of what I just wrote to this McGrew guy. And the text, I mean, I'm cringing right now looking at it. And I wrote to Brad, 3:10 a.m. I wrote, Brad, the first thing I learned from you is that you always handle things with class. And one day I will also be famous, and I have watched your every move when we are together. And when I am famous, I will do the exact same things you do. But I'm not famous yet, and I'm still a big old pile of white trash from Wyoming. And I'm not going to let this piece of shit say one more thing about you or the club. Fuck this dude and his Cheeto head president. I know you'll probably hate all of this, so I apologize in advance. But fuck him. Everybody that works for you wants to say this, and tonight I am saying it. We love you, and we can't stand this ungrateful fuckhead. So I sent that at 3 in the morning to Brad Garrett. I wake up at like noon, right? And I'm laying in bed going, oh my God, what did I just do? What did I just do? I text Brad Garrett at fucking 3 in the morning, a drunk rant after doing another drunk rant. And I look at my phone and there's a message from Brad. And I remember just looking at it. Let me go to my things. I'll tell you guys. I remember looking at it like, motherfucker, Brandt. So I look at it. He texts me at 11:12. And I couldn't pick up my phone. I was scared to pick up my phone and read it. Like, man, I fucking have built this relationship with Brad. He's helped me so much. I fucked it up. And he wrote this back. And I hope I don't break his trust by reading this to you, but I don't think it's anything bad. But I remember just picking up my phone and he wrote back, hey, B, appreciate you having my back, but I don't want you feeling you have to say any of this. Karma plays a big part in people's lives, and humans have a unique way of creating their own demise. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm grateful to have a club where I can showcase comics with all points of view, because it's one of the few arts that celebrates that conversation. But when he made fun of the families and children that Trump put in cages on social media, I was like, I can't support this shit. I canceled his 2 weeks he had on the books and paid him in full. Recently, he gave my personal contact to a right-wing newspaper that's been hounding me ever since, who, of course, I don't even respond to. As my dad used to say, you try to teach a pig how to sing, you get hoarse, and the pig gets mad. Of course, he was bipolar, but you would have loved him. Thanks for being my friend and for having a unique voice on and off stage. Merry Christmas. Love you, pal. Oh, yeah, this was right before Christmas. So even like that, he just handles everything great. And I remember just reading it like, oh, thank God he knows. But even, I mean, he put subtle things in there, like when the paper's hounding him and he's like, of course I don't respond. But that's what I'm saying. And when I read it, I was like, I think he just knows that I'm just a fucking idiot that loves him. And he knew I defended him only because I loved him, but I was still just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I remember telling Shire, like, oh no, this was right before Shire. I don't even know who I told. I didn't really tell. Oh, I think I told my buddy Markman, like, because who also works with him. But I remember just being like, dude, you're not going to believe what I did last night. I texted Brad at 3 in the morning. But he's the best, you know, and you know, I have all these texts from him that it's crazy. Like I was driving to do this shitty gig, and he was on Stern, and I sent him a message. Just said, driving 6 hours through the middle of nowhere to get to a gig and having you on Stern made it so much better. So funny. Hope all is well. He wrote back like 3 minutes later. Oi, geez, wasn't that great, but thanks. Didn't have me on for a while after that. Have a safe trip, my brother. I hope you're kicking ass. I'm just like, it's crazy that he's just so sweet and just so cool. And I tried to fuck it up in true Brandt fashion, but, so that's just a little backstory about how special he is to me. Like the book doesn't even happen without him, and the fact he still would even do this interview when I'm just a fucking drunken idiot going off on the internet and texting him at 3 in the morning. So here comes the Brad interview, but And it's funny. Another funny story is he's just so sweet. But so the Creeches, Emily and Casey and Katie and Reyes and the Creeches' parents, they went to see Brad in Vegas, and they've always been so supportive of me. And they'd gone to Brad's club a bunch, and I wasn't even working the club. And I sent Brad a message. I said, "Hey, my friends, I hate to do this, but some really good friends that have been so good to me are in Vegas at your show. Can they meet you?" And he's like, "Of course." And he brought him back. And then as soon as the show's over, I got a picture from the whole Creech family and Brad of just them flipping off the camera. And Brad sent it to me. And he was like, "Fuck you, but your friends were wonderful," or something. I was just like, he's just the best. So I hope you found those stories interesting. To me, it's just crazy as a kid from Wyoming. And it's like crazy for Shire. So even at the end of this podcast, you'll hear him say, nice stuff about Shire. Can't wait to meet her and go out to dinner and stuff. And which is when I was telling Shire, she's like, "Man, I didn't have cable. I watched Everybody Loves Raymond every day. This is like so crazy." So as much cool shit as I've done, I'll always just be a kid from Cheyenne, Wyoming. And to have like a real celebrity be my friend, and not only be my friend, just be so good to me is just crazy to me. So, and this ends, I asked the question like I always do. It's tough. I keep fucking this up. I need to do better about when I asked if you could script your last words before you die, what would they be? And I'll just give it away now. He says, "I'm sorry." And then I cut it. And then he's like, and then he goes into being funny, like, "I'm sorry." That's what I would say to the audience. And he goes to being self-deprecating, and it was really funny, but I'm like, fuck, I cut it. I always try to cut it there, and occasionally I'll cut it, and then people go on and say stuff. So the ending on this, I don't mean to give it away, but he says, "I'm sorry," but he has nothing to be sorry for. It was going into a funny bit, and I just, when I ask that question, I always just keep my finger on the button to end it right when they give their answer. So what really happened when he ends, he just says, "I'm sorry." That's what I'd say to the audience. I'm sorry they had to hear my hacky bits. And so it was funny, but I didn't mean to screw him on the ending, because it sounds like he has to apologize when he has nothing to apologize for. But that's enough of me rambling. It's a fun interview. I hope you guys like it. If you get the chance, if you're in Vegas, go see him or whoever's at his club in the MGM, the Brad Garrett Comedy Club in the basement. They have incredible staff, and they just do a great job there. It's the most beautiful showroom, best green room. And if Brad's there, it's a night you won't forget. So without further ado, and all my rambling and mumbling and bullshit and trying not to tear up here, and that's enough of me. So here comes my interview with Brad Garrett. I hope you guys enjoy it. And as always, thank you guys so much for putting up with my bullshit. Just like, if it makes you feel better, even people like Brad Garrett have to put up with my drunk stupidness. But I know how lucky I am to have so many amazing people in my life. So enjoy. Here's Brad Garrett. And we are back, coming to you live from the Content Factory. I'm still stuck down in this basement, staying inside like we're supposed to. I'm excited for this show. I think you guys are going to love it. My guest today is a comedian and an actor and the best boss I've ever had. And I'm so glad to have my buddy Brad Garrett. How are you, bud?
Hey, how are you, Brad? Very nice. I've never been called boss.
Boss, yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, I don't feel like your boss. I'm just a guy that needs people like you around me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I guess boss is, it's only like 2 weeks a year, but I always like
owner.
Owner.
Call me your owner.
Yeah. The guy that owns me 2 weeks a year. So
exactly. Man. We miss having you there. We miss being open. It's an odd time, man, but we're gonna prevail. We're gonna get through this shit, I hope.
Yeah, this sucks. Never been through anything like this. Are they telling you anything, or it's just day by day?
It's pretty much day by day. The rumor is mid-May. Mid-May, rumor of Vegas opening back up, but that they haven't really honed in on a date, but they're saying right around mid-May is what they're telling people. But
yeah, that's how we're May 11th out here, so we're hoping, but who knows? So
Are you really May 11th? That because that's I one of those dates were floated too.
Yeah. So.
But Trump wants us to open Saturday.
Yeah.
So we may, we may do that.
Well, you're at home in California, right? You're not in Vegas at all.
No, I'm in Cali. I was I did about 5 nights out there right before we closed up, and even pulled it a couple nights short, and we closed because it was just feeling funky. And then 2 nights after we just decided to hunker down, the governor came out and closed her up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's seeing these Vegas.
Good. We need it, man. We need it because we don't know what the hell we're dealing with. We really don't.
No, it's scary. And seeing these Vegas pictures is wild, just with nobody on the strip. I've never seen anything like it. It's crazy.
It's really, really nuts. Now, how's everything in Denver?
It's good, man. It's everybody's kind of following along. We just walk our dog around the blocks the only time we leave, but we don't. It seems like it's very quiet, and it's eerily quiet outside. Like, you don't hear anything, so I think everybody's trying to just do their best. Everybody's doing what they're told. So hopefully we can hopefully this doesn't take forever.
Yeah, I hope so, man. It's the least we could do. I know it sounds cliche or trite, but it's the least we could do for the community, and especially I have some family members in the medical health industry, and just to help these people on the front lines at the hospitals and stuff. It's like they're just so overwhelmed and understaffed, and they don't have the protective gear, and it's whatever we could do. Hunkering down, is it honkering or hunkering?
I think it's hunkering. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I think
it's all new. We've never had to do it, so this is my first time doing it.
I'm going to go with honkering.
All right, we're honkered down here.
It's good, man.
All right, here. Let me ask you a couple quick questions.
Sure.
Where are you from, and where's the best place to eat in your hometown?
Wow. Well, I grew up. If you want really my hometown, I grew up in Woodland Hills, California. Everyone thinks I'm a New Yorker. My dad was from the Bronx, so I got a lot of him.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up in the San Fernando Valley in California, and the best place to eat in my hometown. Well, this is a few miles from my hometown, but there's a little family-run place that's amazing in Westlake Village called Moody Rooster.
Nice.
Great food, amazing chef, and Brent's Deli. I got to Jew it up. You're Jewish too, aren't you, Brent?
I wish.
Of course.
I wish.
Yeah. You really don't. You really. You'd be too tired to have this podcast right now. Too early for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brent's Deli, man. I always yearn for the good deli. So those two places is kind of where I, I love food, man.
Yeah.
So, but you almost have to go into the city to get the good stuff. But I'm going into this vegetarian mode for the first time in my life. For kind of, I thought I want to feel better. I refuse to work out. So what can I do? And Izzy, my child bride is she's been a vegetarian for 20 years or something, and I just started to try it and take it on because just for health, and I feel so much better.
Nice.
I'm not suggesting it. I don't pontificate about what's so great about. So I am a bit of an animal person. I always have been. But, the bottom line is, the colon. The undercarriage is starting to turn on Uncle Comedy. And I said, I'm going to cut out some of the red meat and some of the dairy. And so it's really tough. But there's this amazing vegan, and I'm far from vegan, but there's this amazing restaurant that I take some friends to. I'm not going to eat vegetarian. Called Crossroads in L.A., in West Hollywood. Very popular. But, I mean, man, they got like a chicken parmesan that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, my sister's full vegan, and she has been for a while, and she tricks me a lot. And I'll go in and I'll eat. And then she'll be like, that was all. And I was like, that was a hamburger. It was incredible. And she's like, yeah. So I've come around on it because I'm a.
It's amazing, right? I mean, the plant-based meat is pretty amazing, and so anyway, that's boring.
No, it's good.
How fucking boring was that?
It's good. It makes you feel better. Trust me. That I tell them about my stupid gluten-free diet I'm on, and they're exhausted hearing about it. It's something different.
I've been doing that too. Now, how long do you have a gluten problem? Or
so I have. I figured it out early this year when my girlfriend, when we started dating, because I was eating just awful like comedy, just late night food, and then my face was breaking out pretty bad, but I could hide it under my beard, and I was just always tired. And then so we did some tests, and then so we everything in our house is gluten free now, and I've changed my whole diet, and I definitely feel better, have more energy, and it's the best thing that she's ever done, is because I would have never known. I was just eating pizza and late night food, and I've been put all that.
Izzy's gotten me gluten free too, and you know what we should do just for fun? Swap girlfriend. And I'll tell you why I say I've seen your lady, and she's really it doesn't have to get weird. She just has to point at it without laughing. So she can keep the social distancing. She could just see across,
I think she would say yes. I think she would say yes for sure.
Really? Wow, that would be a first. But it's funny. I've been off the gluten, and because I'm always tired, not just my ass, but I mean general. And it's helped me, man.
Yeah.
But you're like a mountain man to me. You're like a warrior, not just on stage, because you always crush. And I watch you, and I sit in the bathroom, and I think, what can I steal? If you would. But it's like, I see you as like this rugged mountain man. If you're gluten free, that gives, I don't feel as much as a pussy now.
Yeah. Well, my friends still think I'm a pussy, but it's it's all right. I feel much better, and that's all I care about.
Yeah. And that's what it is. Well, how old are you, man? How old are you?
I'm 42.
Okay. Well, you look good. God, you got a whole lot ahead.
Let's hope so.
91.
Well, you look great for 91.
I'm making us think why we're having this conversation.
What's the coolest thing you've ever won?
Coolest thing I've ever won? Coolest in my opinion, or coolest as far as what really helped me in something, or
no, in your opinion.
Oh God, I can't. This just shows you how sick I am. I don't know. I maybe a poker tournament, and I haven't won a lot of them because I kind of suck. But I won like a celebrity poker tournament, which really doesn't say much because like playing against chimps, most celebrities. They'll Affleck and guys like that, or amazing. And Spider-Man. But I guess to be and I know this sounds kind of douchey, but when I won Star Search, I was like 23, and I was doing comedy a short time and didn't deserve to win, to be honest. But I had a lucky night. On Star Search when it started, you only had to do a minute and a half of material, which for me is most of the act. And I won that, and that really helped me. It was 84. Right, so that was back in the day where if you had some type of TV recognition and you scored a little bit, you'd get a little heat from that. So I guess I would have to say that's something that kind of propelled me into doing the Tonight Show and stuff like. So I guess that was, but so I guess it would be that. But when you say in Star Search, people start really. Turning off the podcast.
Oh no!
I don't want to see it.
So it's funny because all these questions, they're the same each week for everybody. So it's all.
Are they really?
Yeah. So it's cool, but some of these questions are like they're going to be different for you because I was like, man, you've actually, most people are like, well, I won a raffle one time, and as I was asking, I was like, oh shit, you've won it. But I figured you'd say poker just as a fellow poker player. Sure. I was trying to explain to my girlfriend why I just love it so much. She's like, why do you go do that? I was like, I just love it.
It's so hard it was played.
Yeah.
It's so hard. But, when she asked that, just hit her. You're not in the face. Just like a gut punch. Anything that I know this won't air, so I'm not worried about it. But
I would love to hit her, but I got to borrow money for it because I also suck at poker, so I have to apologize.
I'm really bad too. But what is it that we love about it? Because I love it. I've had to really curtail it. But what do you think we love about it? The unknown? It's like stand-up. It's different every time.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. Well, like I said, because I can be douchey too, because I use it as a stage sometimes. If I'm feeling good and I'm like, I'm almost performing, if I'm making the whole table laugh and we're having fun, and just the adrenaline of winning money to me is just so much better than working for it.
I'm with you, man. I'm with, it's like some nights, I'll come home like after an 8-hour round, and then you will go, hey, how'd it go? And I went, amazing, man. I played for 8 hours. She goes, good. I said, I'm up like, 250. So after 8 hours, you're up 250?
Yeah.
And I'll go, yeah. And she goes, that's because she knows I usually lose. So it's always like, how was your night? How much did you lose? And she doesn't mean it in a mean way. Yeah. She's not like that. She's like, what do we have to cut out this week? Include, but it's like, I'm at the point where it's not how much I win, it's how much I lose for the week tells me how I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I've had coaches and, and I've hired coaches and some really talented people, and they're all, and like after my 4th or 5th session, they'll go, I don't want to take your money anymore. And they said, because you just don't get it. And then they'll say, and I'll be able to take it at the table anyway. But when it comes to the big math, the math is where I get fuzzy.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And then I get too personal sometimes if I see like someone yell at someone else, and then I just get determined to break one person, and it's everything a coach would tell you not to do. I get rid of all math. I'm like, this guy over here, I hate this guy, and now I'm going to try to crack him every single time. And I usually catch him. You know what happens? I usually catch him, but then the rest of the table will see how reckless I play, and then they'll catch me and be like, hey, thanks for the laughs and money, and I'll walk back to my room at 6:30 a.m. and call my girlfriend. And she'll be like, where you at? What were you doing? I was like, I was losing money, but the best way I could in Vegas. It wasn't anything bad.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, man, next time you're at the club, I got to make sure, because we've really never gone out and played.
Yeah. I would love to.
It would really be fun. What rooms do you play?
I play, this is funny to admit this to you, but I never play. I've been kicked out of so many rooms. I don't do it as much anymore, so I never play at the MGM to avoid that embarrassing call to you, like, hey, it's with Thursday. I have 3 nights left, and I'm 86 from the property. But I usually go like, I go middle of the strip. Like I like to play more. I don't like to grind it out against grinders. I like to play and try to make it fun and almost a little stand-up-y where I'm having fun talking to people, because I just enjoy talking to people. So I stay more like middle strip, just like a 1-2 no limit game and play there. But
that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it's great.
The way to do it. Yeah, I'm super low stakes because I'm there too much.
Yeah.
I would play way too high, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But, I pretty much gave up the blackjack, and, I love roulette and shit like that. But, I'm sure I got a grip on the chip. You stop one addiction, you start another.
Yeah.
That's life. But.
Okay, so when you win Star Search, or what was like the first time in LA or New York or somewhere where you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm around this person or at this party, like your first starstruck moment? Wow,
that would have to have been Robin, when the first time I was doing an open mic night, and I had to follow, and I mean, you think I'm hacky now. You should have seen the shit I used to do. I mean, I had to follow. I was literally almost 19, and I followed Robin Williams on an open mic night. And Mork and Mindy had just premiered. And I was drawing names. It was, for a Monday night, and I drew a number, and I was going on at like 11:10, and my brother Paul took me. He was with me, and those were the days before I drank or partied or anything. And he's like, just have a pina colada. Paul.
Yeah.
Like, have a pina colada, my friend. So I had a pina colada, and I'm like, well, I'm looped. I'm like, I'm ready, whatever. And it was, you get 5 minutes. And before I go on, they said, listen, we're going to have to bump you because Robin Williams just popped in. He's going to go on, and you'll go on after him. And I got to tell you, I couldn't feel my legs. And he goes on, gets a standing ovation walking on. Then something happened, which I'd never seen. He got a standing ovation like halfway through the act. And I'm like, is there any way I can not go next? And they said, this is it. Anyway, he does about 25 and just destroys. And I was like, and I opened with, I was so large. I was born on the 4th, 5th, and 6th. Bucket cricket. And they just one row up. But I met him briefly backstage, and he was, one of my heroes, obviously.
Yeah.
And then I go on, I die miserably. Half the room leaves because Robin. Then Leno walks in, and then Letterman pulls up.
Holy shit.
In his red truck. And Jay's like, hey, my buddy just got in from Indiana. Could he go on after me? And I'm literally, I have the bench. I'm breathing into a bag. I'm in the back. And they were like, yeah, who is he? They go, his name's David. He does weather in Indiana. He's really funny. Anyway, so it's like those three guys in one night. And of course, I think that's when I started drinking very heavily. Real funny. I just put my head in the oven, watching these three go on. I'm like, oh, what am I doing here? And I ran into Robin one at a time. But what was funny is God bless him, because he was the kindest man to everybody. And I worked on his last show that he had on CBS. I told him the story.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, oh my God, man, I'm so sorry. And I go, no, it wasn't me. He goes, no, but you always feel bad. He goes, you know who I died after when I started out? He goes, before I got Mork and Mindy, he goes, no one knew what I was doing. And they just didn't get it, And I had to follow Jimmy Walker once, who was on the number one show, Good Times, and he destroyed, and I followed him, and I couldn't get anything. I just thought, he goes, so,
yeah,
it comes around. And I went, wow, I rather would have followed Jimmy. Though he was, this is how sick my life was early on. Jimmy Walker, because I love Good Times, I actually, when I started out, I got a gig to work for free at a bar mitzvah, okay? And they said, can you just do 50? Because they did impressions, right? Mm-hmm. And I came out as Jimmy Walker at the bar mitzvah in blackface. I came out in blackface at a bar mitzvah, and my parents were there. And I'm wearing the jean hat and the burgundy turtleneck. And I'm walking out going, dynamite! And I'm walking out, and I'm in blackface. And it was so horrific to look on me. Now, this was 76. not 1876. And that was, and my dad, said to me, and he was a huge supporter of mine, but he said, I'm worried about your choices.
Uh-huh.
What he said after the show,
Yeah.
Because of course I died at the bar mitzvah. He goes, I'm worried about you. And he was bipolar. So by telling me he was worried about my choices, just showed you how fucked up I was.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like Robin and Jay Leno and those guys, who have you met in life that made you the most nervous?
Probably Woody Allen.
Uh-huh.
Probably Woody Allen or Carson. Carson made me nervous just because he was a love, but he had a way of making you feel very comfortable. He would come to the dressing room, and Leno did this before you go on, and say hi, and thanks for being here, you know. And Carson did that. When Carson walked in the room, because, and I had a very small part in Woody Allen film many years ago. And, my dad we'd go to Woody Allen movies, and my dad turned me on a lot of the humor that I love. You know, he turned me on to Rickles, which is really my idol. And, so I think I got a little nervous around them, but they were always, Woody Allen was more shy than anyone you'd ever meet. So it was hard to differentiate if he was just shy, or should you not approach him, or, does he really not want you there? It's how we read things through our own insecurities, is what I've learned. And Cosby made me very nervous, because he fingered me. So that really caught me off guard.
And he didn't even drug you? He just did it?
No, he didn't drug me. I wasn't drinking at the time, and I obliged. And I only saw him 4 times after that. 4 times. Because I had to make sure it really happened. And
yeah.
Boy, it did. Second time, the third time.
Well, speaking of like working with Woody Allen, is there like an audition? Is there something you auditioned for that you really, really wanted that you didn't get that you thought you were going to get?
Yeah, the Billy Crystal movie with Robert De Niro called Analyze This. It was a film about 25 years ago where Billy plays De Niro's psychiatrist. And Harold Ramis was directing, and I did a screen test, and Harold Ramis signed off on it. Billy Crystal signed off on it. I was supposed to play De Niro's bodyguard in the movie. That was a good little part.
Yeah.
And I got a call from my agent, and he goes, all right, you need one more, okay, but he wants to meet you in person. I'm like, okay, cool. And he goes, De Niro. And I go, I got to meet De Niro? They went, yeah, you got to meet him because it's up to him. But the other guys have signed off, and Billy was really great. I read with Billy, and he was really gracious, and it was a great little role. My agent says, you got to go to Shutter's Hotel in Santa Monica. You go to the front desk, and you say, I'm here to see Billy. And I say, okay. And I go to the front desk, and I say, I'm here to see Billy. And they say, okay. And they say, we need 2 forms of ID and 1 picture ID. So I get my license and my library card at the time. And I get in the elevator with the hotel manager. And he says, we got to walk everyone up to see Billy. I hope you don't mind. We've got to walk you to the door. I said, not a problem. They go, he has the whole floor of the hotel. So it's just, I say, no problem. They walk through to the door, and the manager gets on the elevator, and I knock on the door, and he opens it up. It's Robert De Niro in, black jeans and a fucking, a white beater T-shirt. And I said, hey, Mr. De Niro, I'm Brad. He goes, thanks for coming by. Too tall. And he closes the door.
Oh, no.
Okay. And I think it's like a bad joke, and the door's going to open again. Right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't open. I'm thinking, because I'm supposed to sit down with him. I'm thinking, do I knock? So I'm standing there, and I knock.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, what? And I go, is that it? He goes, you're not right, but thank you. Okay. Closes the door. I press the elevator. The manager is still on it. It was so quick. It didn't even go back down to the lobby. And he looked at me and goes, what the hell happened? It's like even the manager of the hotel knew that. I said, I don't know. He just said I was too tall.
Oh.
And the guy's like, "That's a drag." And the guy goes, "Well, you are tall." He said, "Yeah." I went back to my car, and I was like, it was that because I just, I was playing a bodyguard.
Yeah.
And he ended up going with this character actor that he was close with, named Joe Varelli, who did time, actually, from being involved with the mob. And then he got into acting. And he was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, at the end of the day, I look like a large accountant. I get that. I mean, you can look at me and go, "Oh, God, let's cross to the other side of the street." You know what I mean? Yeah. Joe Varelli had a face that looked like, it went through a windshield. It was like that kind, and he had that, and he was smaller and about De Niro's height, and it worked, and he was great, but it was, but I never ever forgot it, and it's, it's part of it. I mean, everybody has those stories, but it was so funny how too tall and he closes the door, and everyone I told the story like that day, because they knew I was going to meet De Niro, half of them couldn't stop laughing, and the other half tried not to laugh. But it was, it was really kind of funny and sick at the time. But
that's great. It's great now. In the moment, I'm sure it's like, God, that sucks.
Yeah, so close.
Well, that made me scared, and so that's my next question. What moment in life were you the most scared?
In life or in business?
No, in life. Well, either one.
In life was things I had to go through with my family. My son starting out, who thank God is okay now, and he's studying to be a nurse, and he's got his life together, but he was going through some depression that was clinical depression. From the time he was very, very young. I mean, young, 6, 7, and we knew what was going on, and it was a very, very difficult time because that led him into drugs and booze and all the things I had quit a long time ago, knowing how devastating it could be. And I think when you have a child that's at risk and is struggling with things he really, really can't control, because I learned, there was a lot of mental illness in my family growing up. My mom struggled with it. My dad struggled with it. And I struggled with depression and addiction early in my life too. But when you see your kid going through it and the journey he has ahead of him, and you pray he makes it, even though I'm not a big prayer, because, but I think when you have a kid struggling, I think nothing scares you more.
I bet.
So that was really it. And as far as scared in the industry, I'm scared all the time. I still get nervous before I go out. Not scared. I'm scared for the audience that they have to sit with. But there's still a little fear. But it's like the older I get, the more I'm like, fuck it. Who cares? But there's something about stand-up, and this. It's like when a stand-up becomes successful as an actor or a film or TV person, they either never go back to it or they can't stop doing it.
Uh-huh.
And when I ended up getting Raymond and I knew it was going to be on a while, I stopped doing stand-up. And I didn't do it for like 7 years. And Ray got me back into it because I went to see him one night at the Mirage in Vegas when the show was hot and he was headlining, and he's like, you got to get into it, man. You got to do it. Even though it's tacky, it's fun, And he said, why don't you just take some time to write and quit making fun of, the Asian guy. And it was so great because he was right. He's like, put some time into it. I'm like, that's not my thing, right? And then one night I was there, and he called me out on stage, and I hadn't done stand-up in 7 years, but I said, I'll just come out and and make fun of him, and he crushed for an hour, and I walked out on stage, and the crowd was very, very nice, and I just, I grabbed the mic and do what I do. I reamed him a new one in front of his fans, and after him busting his ass for an hour, I was doing my bullshit, and they were loving that, and I think they were loving that because they were looking at me as my character, giving Ray shit, which was kind of my character's comeuppance. Oh my God, they saw me as Robert. They really didn't know me. So it was like, oh my gosh, Robert's really hurting Ray, as opposed to really what it was. But that night ignited my desire of how much I really missed it. And, but my point being, I still get a little nervous and a little skittish. I think if we didn't, I don't know if we would continue to do it.
Yeah.
Whether it's poker, we love that edge of not knowing how it's going to go.
Yeah, I think we just do poker because we can't do stand-up because it's too late at night. For me, at least, I was like, well, here's the thing. I've always wondered, like, I don't really like watching myself perform, and I don't know anything about acting, but so when, like, Everybody Loves Raymond comes out, did you watch every episode, or is that cool to watch, or is it weird, or?
It's both. I mean, I hate seeing myself because all I see are the misfires. But I was so new as an actor, and I was training at the time, and I still train once in a while and go to class. I think it's important. But I was watching it to really see, especially on a character you're developing that's brand new. I was watching it to see what was working and what was not working. And it was very painful. Mm-hmm. And because, we're in the sadistic business, that if the industry isn't beating ourselves or aren't beating us up, we're beating ourselves up in one way or another, and we got to get by that by just going. God, I'm grateful to be doing. You and I are doing what we dreamed of doing.
Yeah,
and we're making a living of it. It doesn't matter what level you're at. At the end of the day, you strip it all away. If you can make a living doing what you dreamed of as a kid, it's a gift. It's such a gift.
Yeah.
So that's what I do to try to stay grateful and grounded. But the point being, I would watch the shows. Now the show I'm on, I don't watch for a couple reasons. But it's just there are some times where you go, well, you're only as good as your script. I can only do so much. What made Raymond what it was, it had an ensemble that it just clicked. It was weird. It was like we all came from different areas of the industry. Doris came from theater, and Peter came from film, and me and Ray came from stand-up. And you don't know if you're going to mesh. They go, okay, episode 1, you're a family. Go. And it's like it's so difficult. But there was just a chemistry there. What put us over the top were the writers.
Yeah.
The writing was just, what really pushed us over the top and made us more believable in times when maybe the performances weren't. So, all that stuff, you need a lot of luck. But when the cameras are rolling, you got to have that chemistry.
Yeah. So if you see it now, if you're just scrolling through, do you watch it and reminisce, or you keep going, or?
Very rarely. Very rare.
Yeah.
Some Izzy will put it on to punish me. But sometimes if it's an episode where I like, oh my God, I remember I couldn't stop laughing in the scene with Ray, I'll watch it. Or if it's an episode where we had to do it right after Peter had his heart attack. In real life, he had a heart attack, and we had to scramble to find out not to. Or if it's, oh my gosh, my kid was born the week before we filmed this. If it's a little like that, I'll sometimes watch it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you collect anything?
Well, I collect cars. I'm a bit of a car addict. So I'm into cars. Older cars mostly, though I some of the newest stuff. But again, that became a bit of an addiction level. I know nothing about cars. I had a once called Jay Leno go, listen, I have a 57 Chevy Nomad, and I can't get the gas cap. I can't find it. Where is it?
Man, I can't believe you do this. I don't know why you keep, why you buy a car you don't know anything about.
It's true. It's like,
you pull up the center of the wheel well, and that's gonna.
And it's like, I just love cars. My father loved cars. My father was my hero growing up. He was a magnanimous guy, heart of gold, big dude from Brooklyn, a big teddy bear, but he could crack a walnut between his middle finger and his forefinger. I'd never seen anything like that. He was that fucking strong. And, I wanted to be him, but he was into cars, knew a little bit about it. I really, really know nothing. So Jay will have me on the show to make fun of me about what I do. But I love cars. So cars, I like to collect. I like art. I do a little art collecting.
Well, which car's the favorite?
I have a 1907 Aston Martin DB6.
Nice.
That's kind of my favorite.
But you have a hard time getting in some of these cars, though?
I do. And that's a small car, but some of the small cars, you'd be surprised of the room you have. But a lot, like I have a giant car. I have a 48 Chrysler Town and Country convertible. And in the Aston, I have to get the rails to the seats moved. So to where like I'm almost driving from the back.
Yeah.
Like if you pull up to a stop light, my head's in the rear window. So it's a fucking freak show. But at the end of the day, it's a car I always wanted. And the problem is every time there's an issue, it's in the shop. So the Aston has been in the shop for 4.5 months because we're waiting on parts from England. And it's small stuff that any motorhead should know how to do. But and Jay's like, why don't you learn? Why don't you read the manual? And I'm like, I have no desire. I want to get it, drive up the fucking coast. I don't want to, get a wrench in my hand because I have no ability, mechanically. And why fuck up something and give myself another reason to hate myself.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, you're right. So lately, I have kind of, I got rid of my warehouse. I've been cutting back and cutting down. And when I built the club, my business manager said, you got to get rid of some of the bullshit. If you're going to build this club, you got to get rid of some of the toys. If you're going to make a business move. So I sold half of them and built the club. And I'm starting to, but I just did cars.
Yeah.
I don't know for the small business. I don't, I talk to my shrink and they go, well, maybe it's an insecurity. I go, why? Why can't it be a hobby? They go, well, it's not a hobby unless you really know how to work on a car.
Oh, I don't agree with that. I mean, you could collect art, and I would love to collect art, and I would be the worst artist in the world.
Thank you. And I'm going to be bringing it up in my next session.
Yeah, tell them. All right, I'll give you a few more, get you out of here. What's the best concert and sporting event you've ever been to?
Wow. Concerts. Oh, I love concerts. I'm not a big sports guy, though I did go to the 35th Super Bowl. They sent the Raymond cast as a gift. And it was on CBS. So they sent us. That was pretty exciting. I don't know much about sports, as you know. So sporting events, it's hard for me to get into it. Though I recently got into hockey, because of the nights in Vegas. So to me, there's no, and I've been to mostly every sport. I grew up in LA. I've been to, 5 Laker games. I mean, I know that I'm just not into it. I'd rather go to a concert. My first concert I ever went to, I was 18, and that was the Doobie Brothers. It was my first concert. But Billy Joel and Elton John, I saw them together in concert. That was amazing. I saw Pearl Jam at the Madison Square Gardens in New York. That was really, really good. That was incredible. But I like the old fuck music. I like the old shit, you know, I did see, when I said the old, like the Tony Bennett's and I used to watch Sammy Davis when I would open for him. And as a performer, he was just unbelievable. I know that's another era, but he would sing, he would dance, and then he would go in the orchestra and he would play like 5 of the instruments. And he was really an amazing performer. I saw Alanis Morissette, who I loved, at the Pearl, at the
Palms,
a year ago, and just blew me away.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Well, yeah. is there a certain song that always makes you happy when you hear it?
It's usually "Happy Birthday" because I don't know how I made it. Lived another year when they sing "Happy Birthday." Oh God, Brandt! When boy, there's a lot of them.
Happy Birthday is a great answer. Actually, we've never had that one.
No one expected me to make it this long. Not just in a career, but in life. People that knew me in the '80s and early '90s were like, "Dude, you've got to start waking up at your home." So I know it sounds so douchey, but I'm grateful for every day. It's so weird being in this quarantine because I'm a guy that likes to keep moving and going, and I got to be busy. And sitting around and not being able to, self-medicate with being busy. My voices are so fucking loud. So it's got me really thinking about life and fatherhood and how lucky I am that my kids are okay and thriving. And it's been weird. It's forced me to really be by myself a lot, which I used to always say, I love being alone, which I do like being alone. I think most comics are hermits.
Yeah.
I think we're comics because we're okay being alone. Because when we're on stage, we're really alone.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's the only job in the entertainment industry, the only one that you can do alone.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't act alone. You can't sing alone. You can't be a set designer. You can't be a cameraman alone. It's really the only thing that,
Yeah, I never thought of that.
Which is why when it works, you feel like such a fucking monster because you're your own director, your own writer, you're your own audience. You're your own eye while you're out there. It's like, but this quarantine shit has made me really look at, a lot of shit because we're living in a historic time. We've never gone through this. You'll probably live the rest of your life never going through something like this, I hope.
Yeah. And
it makes you look at shit and reevaluate your shit, your good stuff and your bad stuff. I think the divorce rate for 2020 by the end of the year will be the highest of any year ever. Yeah. I think the divorce rate will surpass the virus itself.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
People are losing their shit. If you're not with the right mate, and you throw in kids that are young that you have to homeschool and entertain and all that, I mean, people are losing their shit.
Yeah, unfortunately, I know a bunch of them that are calling me like, "Oh my God, I got to get out of this shit."
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
All right, well, we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much for doing this. I got one last question I always ask everybody, and thank you for taking the time. I always love talking to you.
One of your biggest fans.
Tell Izzy I said hello, and thanks for always being so good to me.
I said hi to your lady. What's her name?
Shire.
Shire?
Yeah, Shire. So she's excited to meet you. Hopefully one of these Vegas times our paths will cross, or we'll get out there or something. So
I would love to all go to dinner.
Yeah, that'd be great. Then we'll go play poker and let the girls do whatever they want.
Yes. Please promise that.
That's perfect. All right, here's the last question. Here's how I always end it. If you could script your last words before you die, what would they be?
If I could do what?
If you could script your last words before you die, what would they be?
Oh, God. Wow. My last words?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a heavy one. Fuck. Probably I'm sorry. Because they
Brandt Tobler trying to expand globally. Long curly hair and a beard, but he ain't Toby Keith. You might have thought it's beef, but we gon' handle that. Stealing jerseys off of the wall like fuck Jack. Okay, he ran with that, and now he's on the loose. Put a little bit of poison in his Jamba Juice. Go ahead and drink on that, just take another sip. Need an appraisal, shout out to Ron Huffin' Dick. The kids loving this, I know you heard it, son. The purpose is perfect, every person we learn something from. Go ahead and come along, we have a little fun. A few questions, how about 31?